I'm so sorry. I'm always late. Like, what's new? I was finishing up a Ted Kaczynski piece, and I was like, ugh, I can wait until after this, but I kind of want to get the competency shit on my Substack, focus on the next thing. So I really quickly finished that up. I just posted it. I'm sure some of you guys got notified. I can't stop thinking about this case. We did a video yesterday. Let me know if the audio is really bad because it sounds quiet and I almost electrocuted myself 2 seconds before I got on here. I literally look like I'm transitioning. Like, kidding. La la la. I think it's, well, let's see. Oh, the day. Anyway, it won't fasten. Anyways, I've been thinking about this case since we did yesterday's video. And I was like, a good topic could be, well, first I was like, I kind of want to see what this defense, what their strategy was. So I listened through the night to like the opening statement, which I had to do a few times, like just because they couldn't keep my attention. It's hard, but it's not that hard. It always happens in these pretty straightforward, seemingly straightforward cases. You know, you have somebody that admits guilt right away. It's almost like they don't try. If I could go back, I bet you in 10 years I'll end up going to law school and I will end up becoming an attorney for those that should get the insanity plea. I don't even like calling that. There's so many issues with it. So many issues. But when I looked more into this case, I found out, okay, it's in Texas, obviously. I didn't know that right away. And the reason that it's such a contentious issue is because of obviously capital punishment, the right to execution. And I came across a video that was like, they filed a motion to appeal the jury, not the conviction, but the execution part, the penalty, the sentencing, or whatever it's going. I'm no lawyer. I just pretend to be one on the internet. Kidding. But they filed a motion because both murders, it was not a unanimous decision, which I guess in the state of Texas, it's a majority vote. Did you guys know that? Because I didn't know that. I know. I saw this. I saw that. It's another reason why I posted it later. I was like listening to stuff about it. Don't worry. Don't worry. That stuff, it's like that's a big deal, but don't get me wrong, it is. But just because he drops out, if you're Democrat or whatever, that doesn't mean that you don't have another opponent per se. And quite frankly, it could be a strategy. He could just enter later, you know? It's kind of genius if you look at it that way. Assuming that, well, I won't go into like too much conspiracy, but if you're worried about who gets into office, just remember, you do have a say, even if you don't vote, okay? So, curious to see where it goes, though, not gonna lie. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I did not know that the state of Texas does not require a unanimous jury decision, meaning if one person says, I don't think we should execute the guy, then he doesn't get executed. But there, it's like 9-2. It's like, yeah, majority wants it. So then it goes through. So I didn't know that. So that was interesting. No, I have not. I have not. Anyways, so then I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this whole trial or whatever, and then we can do parts of it that stand out, at least to me. This video is not saying that so-and-so is not guilty. He is. There's no question if he is or not. He confessed to his father and to the police. We know the man did it. But the question is, did he have the capacity to not do it? And that's a topic that is very difficult to even, like, imagine being a defense attorney in the state of Texas, and you know that this man is mentally ill, and you have to convince an entire courtroom, family members who lost somebody to this man's behavior. You have to convince an entire courtroom that we don't have the control that we think we have. Like, that's an insane task. And guess what? Most lawyers don't want to do it either. They could give two shits. It's not even just like to say like lawyers just hate their job. Like, no, it's like sometimes they gotta make the best case for even the worst people. But it starts to get really interesting when you're looking at issues of execution. And so it combines an entire whole other moral dilemma. It's like a lot of countries, I think we're the only country that actually has capital punishment. Somebody want to check on that? I'll look that up. Sorry. But most people, or most countries, have adopted some form, at least the Nordic countries. Maybe I'm biased, but they've adopted a more like rehabilitation system going on. Whatever. But in America, we love violence. It just has to be at the right time. People love violence. It just has to be at the right time. It's like we would like to watch wrestling, UFC. We like to, if a guy punches a girl, we love to see the boyfriend come and whoop his ass. We like to see dad whoop his ass. It's like we like violence at the right time. But then you get to this issue of capital punishment. And it's like, it always comes down to something along the lines of, well, they need to pay back for what they did. And I don't know how to say this lightly, but those who have been deemed competent to stand trial that have been documented with a mental illness, they have no fucking clue what's going on. They might look like they do, but no, they don't. No, they don't. They already think they're dead. You're like, Tori, what the fuck? Literally, after I've experienced it. After like a more violent event, at the hands of somebody who is mentally ill. From then on, the delusions started to get worse, and they started to chant things like, I am dead. I am now a skeleton. And it's like funny. I mean, you have to laugh at some point, guys. It's so like dramatic. Like, I'm dead. Okay, we get it. And it got me thinking, I'm like, did this man in this case have tattoos prior to when he met all these people and committed the crime? I'd be so curious because of my experience with somebody who, after a certain event, suddenly now they're dead. Well, how the fuck did you die? What? It really makes you question, like, capacity, what their reality is. Because for all we know, They could be killing somebody to save us. I've seen that written down and shit. It's not going to end up on like a Hallmark card, but like it's kind of moral when you look at it from their capacity. It's like, should you really hold them accountable? Well, how do you know what somebody's thinking? It's like we already kind of think we do anyway, so why does it matter? I'm just giving you the opposite case. People like to look at the mentally ill up on, not even on stand. They don't put them on stand. God forbid. It's not even that people wouldn't understand. They would just turn it into something else. It's actually quite delusional looking at it as like an observer who knows both sides. You can't help but think that. So people will end up looking at these people like, oh, look at them, so dead in the face, or look at them, they have no remorse. And it's like, you don't say. It's so then why do you care about capital punishment? And I get it. They deserve to know. Guess what? They don't have insight. Some do, but they're probably not committing crimes. I would. Most people with like a delusional disorder, psychotic disorder, honestly, schizophrenia, psychosis, even moments of breaks in between manic depression. It could be postpartum depression. Anytime, or I'm sorry, it's postpartum psychosis or depression with psychotic features. There's actually a lot of, come to think of it, there's a lot of disorders that incorporate positive symptoms or something that adds to the human experience, things like hallucinations, things that aren't there, whatever. So where the fudge was I going with that? Damn, I was on a roll, killing it. No pun intended. Fucked up. Whatever. You're my property. Oh, Jesus. My point. Oh, capital punishment. It's like, what's the point of sentencing them to death if they don't think they did anything wrong? Even if they plead guilty. Like, they literally don't think they did anything wrong. Because their reality is different than ours. And it's like, while I'm writing about this whole issue, because it's literally the most difficult thing I've ever had to articulate, like dead ass, just so difficult. It's like, the more that I write about this shit, the more that I sound fucking nuts. Love it. I'll take it, whatever. But it's just, until people experience it, it's like, I know there's a break from reality because I watched it. I don't know. There's physical tics of madness. I rewind them in my brain, looking for moments where things started to switch. Then you see them up late at night writing on walls and garages and other people's houses, on their hands, on their feet, on photographs, on furniture, you name it, they've written on it. Which, it's like funny. You gotta laugh, okay? It's like I've watched the thought process in the way that they write change. I've seen how something like cat in their head turns to the color purple. So I don't know exactly how to word that shit. I'm working on it, but I've seen people's thoughts get jumbled. I've seen people's perception be incredibly warped. And there's nothing you can do about it. And other than just hope they don't become violent over it. That's our country right now. They have to actually harm you before you can actually get somebody like crisis there. People kind of bend it a little bit. They have to be a danger to themselves or others. There's a lot they can do that doesn't involve touching you in some regard that is absolutely terrifying. Think of it like in the way that you see like the Exorcist movies. Like, you know that the girl upstairs has like a demon. Like, you know it. They're walking upstairs and you know that bedroom, like over there, some shit's about to go off. You open the door and she's in the ceiling. It's the same thing. I can't explain it. It's terrifying. Not all the time. Not all the time. But I'm just saying there's a lot that can happen that doesn't involve an actual crime where like you have to press charges. They can get all up in your face, absolutely cracked out of their mind, and then you find out that there's no drugs in their system. I've seen the brain do crazy shit. But anyways. We'll take a look at the friend's testimony. I tried to find the cross-examination for it. I'll try to do some of it. And it's not, like, my goal is not to say that the victim is wrong or that the victim caused a certain event. But in order to prove my hypothetical case, which is the diseased mind, that he was ill at the time it took place, I have to question your level of understanding because you made a lot of like bad decisions. You'll understand when we get there. A lot of bad decisions, but they were under the influence. Like, I'm a bartender. I have 8 certifications. One shot, you're done. You're legally like the legal standard. You are intoxicated. Technically, I'm not even allowed to serve you when you are visibly intoxicated. Make that make sense. You're fucked up in our legal system. But yeah, so there's a lot of focus on how this person was so friendly and nobody had any inkling that anything was going on. And that's the problem. There's a huge stigma around mental illness, and one of the worst ones that you can have is almost impossible to prove. Impossible. Like, literally, it's impossible. But there is one way to prove it, and it requires years. I think it took me about 3 years to actually get the diagnosis, because legally they had at the sign of a first psychosis, you cannot give like a full-blown schizophrenia diagnosis unless there was at least 6 months from the first admission where they like suspected something was off. Okay, so, and that's, you would think, oh, 6 months, that's a month, enough times. You know how many times I called crisis? And they were hospitalized on a 5150? For sure, over 50 times. 14 times. It's a blur. But the doctors in these, I call it floor 8. It's different everywhere, but there's like the mental health unit, just like they have a dementia unit, they have a mental health ward, and there's about I don't think they have more than one doctor there at a time, and they rotate throughout the entire Northwest, in my instance, Northwest suburbs. So your chances of getting the same doctor to see you, it's good luck. And even if you do, you want them to, so then you have the same person that knows like a change in behavior in some regard. You hope that's the case. I'll tell you, we had that situation, thankfully, but nothing came from it. Our system sucks ass. It really does. It's horrible. But yeah. Okay, so let's listen to what people have to say about this person's seemingly good behavior or friendly behavior. Oh, my bad.
Where else did you live across the country with Christine?
We lived in Colorado together as well.
And did you both end up here in Cape Coral,
I just realized that my audio was probably not working. Now it is.
Florida?
Yes.
Back in October of 2019, were you working
Yes, Christine and I both worked at Duffy's in Cape Coral.
What type of employer is Duffy's?
It was a restaurant and bar, and we both waited tables there.
Was Christine dating anyone back in October of 2019?
No, Christine was not dating anybody.
Were you dating anyone?
No, I was not.
Where did Christine live at the time?
Christine lived in Cape Coral off of Tudor Drive.
What type of home did she live in?
It was a duplex apartment.
Did she live with anyone?
She lived alone.
Did she have any pets?
She did have one cat.
Your Honor, may I approach?
May.
For the record, I'm showing the defense counsel what's been previously marked as State Exhibits 4 and 10A.
Come on.
2019.
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 10A. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, that is the apartment that Christine lived in.
And does that fairly and accurately show the apartment that she lived in back in October of 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, the state would move 4 and 10A into evidence.
Any objection? Be admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Is that Christine?
Yes.
I'm showing you her duplex where she lived at the time. Which door is hers?
The white door on the left. So there's a window and then the door right next to it to the right.
Okay, so the door to the right of the window is her door, or the door to the left of the window?
To the left of the window.
Of the middle window?
Yeah, the far left door.
Thank you.
I can't do
I want to
that.
take you back to October 6th of 2019. Did you see Christine on that day?
Yes, Christine and I had planned to meet up later that night and to go out drinking at the Buddha bar in Fort Myers.
Had you ever been to the Buddha bar?
I had not been there before.
Where is the Buddha located?
It's located off of McGregor and I think College Parkway.
Is that in Lee County, Florida?
Yes.
How did the two of you get to the Buddha?
So I met Christine at her apartment that night and we took an Uber from her apartment to the Buddha.
About what time did you Uber over to the Buddha?
Around 10:30.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
For the record, I'm showing defense counsel what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 7. I'm showing you State's Exhibit 7. Will you take a look at it and tell me if you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, this is the Buddha in Fort Myers.
And is the bar behind the big statue of the Buddha?
Yes, that's the main entrance to the bar.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move 7 into evidence.
Any objection? Be admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Do you have any specific reason the two of you chose the Buddha on that night?
There was live music there that night, so we wanted to go see a band play.
When you got there, what was just sort of the general environment of the bar?
It wasn't overly crowded. There was, a decent amount of people there that night, dancing, drinking, nothing out of the ordinary from a typical bar.
Was there a band playing?
Yes.
Now, were you friendly and did you talk to other people that were there?
Yeah, we socialized quite a bit. There's a couple of different bars in the main bar, and we were down at one bar, we danced, we got drinks at other bars, we talked to the people that were there. Pretty standard going out night.
Now, obviously you're drinking and listening to music this entire time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had been drinking pretty heavily that night.
And is that why you chose to get an Uber?
Yes, yeah, we both knew we were going to be drinking, so we didn't want to be driving at all.
Now, while you were there, did someone approach you?
Yeah, towards the end of the night, as we were walking up to the upstairs bar, somebody jumped out in front of me, kind of just like to get my attention and said, "Hey, who's your friend?" And gestured towards Christine. And he seemed friendly and introduced himself, and I grabbed Christine and said, "Hey, this guy wants to meet you."
What was his demeanor?
Friendly, charming.
Is there any red flags that popped up when you were talking to him?
No.
How did he introduce himself to you?
At that point, he introduced himself as JR.
Do you see JR sitting in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you please point to him and identify an article of clothing that he's wearing?
Right there in a bright blue suit.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Okay.
Now, has his appearance changed since the time that you met him?
Yes, he has a lot more tattoos on his face. He did not have any facial tattoos
May I
when
approach
we
the
met
witness?
him.
You may.
At this time, the state showing has been marked as State's Exhibit 39. Could you take a look at State's Exhibit number 39 and tell me if you recognize that exhibit?
Yes,
Will you recognize it to me?
JR, the person who introduced himself to us that night.
And is he the same person sitting here in court today?
Yes, ma'am.
And does this fairly and accurately represent how he looked back on October 6th of 2019?
Exactly.
At this time, the state will move 39 into evidence.
You'll be admitted.
Permission to publish.
You may.
Now, after you introduced him to Christine, what happened next?
Christine and I and JR and another man, Jason, who we were introduced to by JR, talked at the bar, mingled. Christine and JR seemed to be interested in each other. Me and Christine had commented on how he had dimples, and one of the guys she had been talking to earlier in the night only had one dimple and he had two dimples. And, she definitely was attracted to him and he seemed attracted to her, and they were friendly and getting to know each other.
Now, you mentioned that JR introduced you to someone by the name of Jason.
Yes. So there was another man that he was with at the bar named Jason. And I was under the impression that they were there together as friends, just like me and Christine had been.
At some point, did you take your talking and socializing outside of the bar?
Yeah, so that was at the end of the night and the bar was closing. So they were kind of shuffling everybody out the door. Christine and I went outside and we're still continuing to socialize with JR and Jason until, it was decided to leave. And me and Christine had came in an Uber. So we followed Jason and JR to their car. JR had tossed the keys over to Jason and we were going to go after party. I didn't know at that point if we were going back to Christine's house or where we were headed from there, but we were going together.
Now,
I just noticed something that I didn't catch the first time. And again, I'm going to point out inconsistencies, not because I'm trying to victim blame, but because people use these expert testimonies or the testimonies. I don't know if you would call it expert, but she was the last one with her, with one of the women who lost their lives. Horrible. And people are gonna the jury in particular is going to feel that, honestly. And it's how do you compete with that? And it's well, this is the first time they met each other and you're intoxicated. And I already know that the memory does some wild shit. She said she was there on a Sunday. She said live music, so usually it's Friday or Saturday at those types of places. I've guest bartended in Florida once, so maybe I'm wrong, but I know their liquor license at most of those establishments. Miami's a little bit different. I think they can go a few extra hours, but not longer than 3 a.m. On a Sunday, most places are not going to be open late, even if it's a live music hall. I'd say that it probably closed. Let's say it closes at 11. That means that they cut everybody off an hour before, sometimes 30 minutes before. So if they close at 11, it means at the latest, they're cut off from alcohol at 10:30. She's kind of making it seem like it was later than that. I don't know. I found that to be kind of, which is just, okay. You didn't find it weird that these men you've never met, you're going to get an Uber to follow to their house? I get it when you're kind of wasted. You're what's the move? I get it. I do get it. But the last place, you're gonna follow them to their car and they're drunk? How much have they had to drink? Like I said, one shot. And if you blow, you will get in trouble. Do not drive. My God. It's they're following the Uber to their car for them to drive. You trust the... And I'm saying this because it's it's not just I would never fucking do that, but as somebody in the industry, I would never fucking do that. Not saying that she's at fault. It's just obviously you were drinking alcohol and your inhibitions were like lowered. But with that said, how can you? Okay, whatever. Maybe I'm a little early.
When you went into the parking lot, everybody's talking. Again, describe the mood.
Happy. Everybody was cheerful, intoxicated, but there wasn't anything out of the ordinary or scary by any means. Just typical end of the bar night.
Now,
Following to their car, and you literally just met them at closing, is crazy. I don't care if they're fat and tall. No. It's like you're taking an Uber to their car. Why don't you just, if you were never going to drive, why don't you just get an Uber to their place altogether and make sure that they don't get in a car crash? It's like, but they have to go get their car. They can come back and get it in a couple hours.
oh, is this around 2 a.m. that the bar's closing and
Yes.
kicking everybody out?
Mhm.
No,
Now-
no way. No way. What's the name of the place? Buddha Bar? Buddha Bar, Florida. Hours. Today's Sunday and they close at 8 p.m. And the only reason why I know that for sure it's Sundays because they talk about how they had work the next day a little bit later. 8 p.m. And this is summertime? Maybe. This is when they're going to be open the latest. That's a little... You must have been really intoxicated. Did you go out before? I just have questions.
Everything was closing at that point.
Again, as far as JR is concerned, does he exhibit any kind of anger or any kind of red flags?
No, not at all.
And in fact, you and Christine thought he was charming.
Mhm.
Now, you mentioned that JR threw the keys over to Jason.
Mhm.
What type of car was it that you got in?
It was a Dodge Hellcat, I think it's called.
Whose car did you believe that was?
I believed it was Jason's at that point.
When you got
Or
it,
yeah,
you believed it was Jason's car?
I don't really remember. I just know Jason was driving at that time, so my assumption was that it was his car.
Where did everybody sit in the car?
Jason sat in the front seat. Christine sat in the passenger seat, and then me and JR were in the back seat.
Now, did you,
Sorry, the JR is the Wade guy. Gave like a different name, so it's confusing me. So the girl and the guy that isn't, okay, they're in the front. I mean, I guess. How do you text your friend to be like, do you think these guys are insane? Like, without them knowing. Like, you have to put it on your phone and show it to them.
did you
No
end up going?
offense.
We drove not very far. It was only a couple of turns, maybe less than 10 minutes in the car, but we ended up at Jason's house.
May I approach
Okay.
the witness?
Amen.
For the record, I'm showing defense counsel.
So that's the other guy, not Wade.
I'm showing you states exhibits number 8 and 9. Will you please take a look at those exhibits and tell me if you recognize them?
This is the car that we left the Buddha in.
States exhibit number 8.
8.
Does that fairly and accurately represent the way the car appeared when you got in it that night?
Yes.
Showing you states exhibit number 9. What does states exhibit number 9 show?
This is Jason's house.
Is this the house where you went to after the bar closed?
So they got into this man's Hellcat, or just somebody's Hellcat. They go to Jason's house. That's the car they got in. That's important because later I'm pretty sure she says they get in their car, and it confused me. So that's why I'm like clarifying.
Yes, I remember that star on the house.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will move 8 and 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
Permission to publish.
You may.
And wait a minute. If it's only a couple of turns, why did they drive anyway? Okay.
You just told the jurors this is the Hellcat that you all got in?
Yes, ma'am.
And then State's Exhibit number 9, that's Jason's house.
Yes.
When you arrived at Jason's home, was anyone else present?
Yeah, his mom was home. So when we walked in the front door, his mom was awake and on the couch and not very happy that he was bringing people home. We tried to make small talk and, kind of ease the situation. But we just ended up going to Jason's bedroom, which was down the hall from there.
Now,
Okay.
when you got back into Jason's bedroom, what happened with Christine? And
So at 8 p.m., of course the mom's awake. Sorry, I'm like relaying. They made it sound like it was 2 a.m. I Googled that place. They close at 8. Okay. So he lives with his mom. See that if the mom was in a bad mood, and I'm not blaming them. It's just like that would have been my first clue to be like, we're not welcomed here. We should probably go. But no.
and JR.
So pretty quickly after getting to Jason's house, Christine and JR started having sex.
Whoa.
When they started having sex, what did you and Jason do?
Wasn't that kind of weird? I don't remember it being that fast. Can your friend consent? With all due respect, how long were you at this bar? I mean, I guess it happens. It's just you kind of run into mom, and then you go there. Okay. Can somebody justify it?
Jason had a bedroom that led to the outside. So Jason and I hung out outside most of the time, only to, really go in to use the bathroom maybe. Christine and JR were inside for a while. They came outside and mingled a little bit with us and went back into the bedroom.
But was he drinking still? Were they both drinking? That's important. That's important because that's a big deal. For those that don't know, something that happens in the prodrome phase of something like schizophrenia, it's like a substance abuse is like there most of the time. And you're like, you think of yourself, you're like, well, I might do a little bit of snow. Sorry, I'm like, I don't know. I might have a beer. I'm good. When somebody with a brewing psychotic disorder does that, it's like a light switch, baby, into psychosis. They could have a hit of marijuana and suddenly they have cannabis-induced psychosis that eventually will manifest as schizophrenia. But that prodrome is so murky because most people don't catch it as anything. So when they do break in a psychosis, they think it's drugs. So it's like, oh, they're drinking a little bit more. They've been going out more. And it's like they're trying to cope with what's happening. They're losing reality. They're coping with it. And so a lot of times we all like go, it's drugs. But man, that like eye-opening moment where I was convinced that this person had to be on meth. And literally was like, I sound crazy. I was in the ceilings looking to see if I could find like contraband or some shit. Nothing. And I don't remember how. Oh, the cop told me, which is probably against HIPAA. But they said they did a drug test. Nothing came up in their system. I was like, the mind does that? The pupils and everything? Your mind can just do that? This whole time I thought pupils dilated, uppers, like that's industry. I work in nightlife. the dance drug. Like that's just what I always associated with that. It's crazy when you find out no, they're seeing shit. That's like a physical manifestation of it. Crazy. Okay.
True.
You mentioned that they started out having sex. Did their sexual encounters appear to be consensual?
Yes.
So there was nothing that
You cannot consent when you're intoxicated. I get it. Okay, I get it. My point is that my point is not, oh, he must have taken advantage. Just the default, when you are under the influence, you technically, legally cannot consent. You don't have the full capacity. Whether it's a moral thing or not is another conversation. I'm just pointing out that if you're even slightly impaired, it would be deemed not consensual. Just saying.
again,
Which should have been like another red flag that we should leave. You know what I mean? Again, not blaming.
at this point, that caused any red flags?
No.
Now, when you and Jason were outside, what were the two of you doing?
We were drinking, smoking, talking. He had a trampoline out there, so we sat on the trampoline and talked.
Wait. Okay, so drinking, smoking, talking, trampoline. That sounds fun. Trampoline, sorry. So they were drinking, smoking. So I'm assuming when you go outside, there was alcohol because the other people kept coming in and out. Was he getting a cigarette? That's a big indicator, which it sounds stupid,
Talked
but
for a while, just mingling, talking.
Did the two of you have any interest in each other that night beyond just talking and friendship?
No.
So did the two of you hook up at all?
No.
Now, you mentioned that JR and Christine would
I
go
know.
inside the house and come back out and kind of go back and forth.
Mhm.
During these back and forth interactions, were they normal types of interactions?
Yeah.
Did they appear to be having a good time?
Yeah, they appeared to be having a good time with each other and, joyful and, nothing out of the ordinary or concerning.
Now, about how long
They're both
were you
impaired.
at Jason's house?
I would say we were probably there for a couple hours, maybe 2 hours.
After about 2 hours, did you all leave?
so their timeline of events was that they left at 2 a.m. and then they were there for 2 hours. So that's 4 a.m. already. My timeline is they left at 8. Well, I don't really have a timeline, but the place closed at 8. We checked it online. So it had to be like 10. Which, again, it doesn't matter. I'm not victim blaming. I'm just pointing out that I don't think that deciding a man's execution is going to be determined on his behavior that you witnessed while impaired. Period. That's all.
Yes. So we were at Jason's house, and then kind of, quickly JR was saying, oh, we got to go. This guy doesn't want us here anymore. And it was kind of at that point that I realized that Jason and JR didn't know each other before this night. The way JR was, seeming at the beginning of the night was that, they were there together. And then when we were leaving, it was, it didn't seem that way. It seemed like this guy wanted us out of his house, and it was kind of quickly an exit. But when we went to the driveway, we got back into the car that we came in, which Jason had drove at that time, but now JR was driving.
So that we came in, which Jason had drove it at that time, but now JR was driving. The Hellcat, I'm assuming. Okay. And the Hellcat is JR's. Okay.
So when you are leaving Jason's house, was it somewhat abrupt as far as
Yeah,
you
it
all
was
leaving?
quick, but it wasn't anything like he wasn't mad that we were still there or anything like that. It was just time to go.
And this night that you went out on the bar, it was a Sunday night.
Yes.
So you're going into now Monday morning.
Wait, so at first you were saying that like, oh, we just realized that they were not friends because he kind of wanted us to leave, but now you're saying no, it was just time to go. Not faulting, just to see. I feel like we're getting too whatever.
No, Monday, everybody, well, I had to work. I believe Jason had to work the next day. His mom obviously wasn't happy that we were there to begin with. So
the party, everything's kind of winding down for the night.
yes. And we go and get in the car, and JR is trying to back the car out of the driveway, and he can't get it to go in reverse. It's just revving the engine in the driveway.
Is the car a manual or a stick shift?
It's a stick shift
Is
car.
it clear to you that he was unable to drive a stick shift?
Yes.
So what happened is you're in the driveway and he's revving the engine.
So Jason actually had come
You're
out.
telling me that the moment you realized there was something off was when he didn't know how to switch gears. Okay. A little late. Okay, but I hear you. Okay, that would freak me out too. But I also wouldn't get in a car with somebody who was intoxicated to begin with and was still drinking there. Because, like, here's the thing. If you left the bar, you go to this house and you continue to drink and they're coming in and out, they're probably drinking too. Nobody's asking her. So we don't know. So it's like one thing if he stopped drinking when they got there and then you notice this as well. It's okay. Now you're okay with him driving, but not okay when it was at the bar with less alcohol in your... Okay.
Outside because he heard the engine revving, and said, you guys got to leave, you can't be here anymore, you're being too loud, it's almost the morning. At that point, JR had actually gotten the car into reverse and into the street. He was trying to get the car into drive and go forward, and same thing, he couldn't get the car to move. He's just revving the engine in the middle of the street. It was at that point that I got out of the car and said to Christine, I said, get out of the car. Let's take an Uber. Let's get in an Uber and go home.
Right. So were you able to make contact with an Uber driver to have them come pick you up?
Yes, Christine called the Uber.
Now, once the Uber driver arrived, did you get into the Uber right away?
Yes, I got into the Uber right away. Christine and Wade Wilson were looking for his cell phone. He couldn't find his cell phone. So they started to walk back towards Jason's house to look for his cell phone. I don't know if they made contact with him. I was sitting in the Uber at that point with the Uber driver, and both him and I remember him.
I'm just poking. Okay. So, number one, she hasn't said yet, but did he get the phone? Because he's going to have to call his own Uber. What, he's going to come to your house? Boys?
Him saying, oh, they got 5 minutes or I'm leaving. And, both of us were ready to go at that point.
Now, to your knowledge, did Wade Wilson, or the person that was saying that he was JR, did he ever find his phone that night?
I don't believe so.
So when he and Christine got back in the car, where did the Uber driver take you?
The Uber took us back to Christine's apartment.
And then that's 10A, Christine's apartment.
I don't care. Okay, it might be different if I know. I was going to say, I could know a guy, so I could work with a male bartender and still not have him come back to my house and call the Uber. Like, that's stupid. But, like, granted, if I know them, it's a little bit different. But, like, a strange man? You didn't think, like, no, let's get you an Uber first? Or, like, let's go to your place first, drop you off, and then we'll go. They didn't want to pay for it? Yeah, I can understand.
Right.
Yes.
Now, What happened when you got back to Christine's home?
Hi, honey.
When we got back to Christine's home, the three of us went into her house, and I know Christine and I had this sense of relief that we had made
I don't have credit card debt, you son of a bitch, in the chat.
it at home, you know, that we got home, you know, safely, and you know, just it was winding down. I remember sitting on the couch and taking my shoes off. I remember Christine standing in the kitchen getting something to drink. And I remember telling her, you know, I had to go home because I had to go to work the next day and take my son to school.
Now, where was your son staying that night?
He was with my mom.
And did you and your son live with your mom?
Yeah, we lived with her at the time.
Now, about what time did you leave to go home so that you could take your son to school and go to work?
About 6 o'clock.
Now, prior to leaving, did everything seem fine?
Yeah, it did. And I remember telling Christine, you know, I have to go home. I have to go to work. And she was like, okay. She hugged me and kissed me goodbye and said, talk to you tomorrow.
And again, when she told you goodbye and that she'd see you tomorrow, did you have any concerns for her safety?
No.
And in fact, if you did, would you have left her home with just her and Wade Wilson in that house?
Not at all. And if she was concerned, Christine would have never let me leave that house if she was scared. She would have said, let's get this guy out of here together.
So when you left, is it safe to say that really the night was over? The party was over?
Yeah.
It's already morning time.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like I said, we had this sense of relief that we had made it home. You know, we obviously were in a car with somebody who couldn't drive a car. And I know for me, that was the scariest part of that night, was the being behind the wheel of a car with somebody who couldn't drive. And I know when we got back to Christine's house in that Uber, it felt like, you know, we were home safe.
And it seems that your concern was not driving while intoxicated because along the way you had gotten Ubers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, when you left, you said that you had to take your son to school and you also had to go to work. What time did you go to work?
I had to work the morning shift at Duffy's that day. I think I was at work by 10:30 in the morning. My son starts school at 9, so I dropped him off and then went to work.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Christine worked at Duffy's. Did she have to work a shift that day?
She was not scheduled to work that day.
Nevertheless, did you reach out to her just to check in with her at some point?
Yeah, I had texted her in the early afternoon and just said, you up? And I did not receive a response.
All right. May I approach your honor?
You may.
For the record, I'm showing state's exhibits, or I'm showing defense counsel that's been marked as state's exhibit 6, 5I, and 5J. We ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit 6. Do you recognize the numbers on State's Exhibit 6?
Yeah, that's Christine's phone number.
Is that the phone number you texted her?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you State's Exhibit 5I. What is 5I?
Christine's cell phone.
Okay, and 5J?
It's the back of Christine's cell phone.
And is that a pop-it that's on the back of her cell phone?
Yep.
That would help
Pop
her to hold
socket.
it?
Yep.
And is this the phone that she carried that night and carried with her at all times?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would seek to move 6, 5I, and 5J into evidence.
Any objection? Be admitted.
Permission to publish.
You may.
showing State's Exhibit 6. That was Christine's cell phone number at the time.
Chicago.
Yes.
Is 630 like a Chicago or an Illinois area code?
Yeah, it's an Illinois area code.
Showing you 5I. That's the front of her cell phone.
Yes.
And then 5J, that's the back of her cell phone with the pop socket.
Yes.
So they recovered her phone, or the phone was never accounted for. But they're showing what the phone looks like. Why is that important? To me, that tells me it's not premeditated at all. I feel like if I were to get into the mind of somebody that wanted to kill just to kill, I know it sounds morbid, but the truth is the phone gives anybody all the info they need, who they last talked to, what they last Googled, where they, like, it gives you the exact pinpoints. Yeah, baby.
Now, when she didn't immediately respond to your text, were you concerned at all?
No, at that point, I was not concerned. We had a late night. She didn't have to work. I assumed she was sleeping.
Okay. Did you
So was she really intoxicated? Okay.
later on try to get a hold of her?
So when I left work, I called her again. She didn't answer. And then I got in touch with Samantha, who is her cousin. Again, not concerned that I hadn't heard from her. I asked Sam, I said, have you talked to Christine at all today? She said no. I had told her, I was out with her last night, just kind of told her about our night and what we did, and ended the conversation. Maybe a few minutes later, I'm not sure how long, I got a call from the Cape Coral Police Department.
Now, you mentioned you talked to Samantha, who was Christine's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Was Samantha also a good friend of yours?
Yeah. Samantha and I have been friends since high school as well.
And was Samantha obviously she was a cousin of Christine, but were they also very close?
Yeah. All of us have been like sisters, like best friends.
And Samantha had not gone out with you the night before?
No, Samantha was not with us.
Now, did you also try to call Christine?
Yeah, I tried to call Christine and text her that day.
When you called her, did the phone ring numerous times?
Yes.
It didn't go straight to voicemail?
I honestly, I remember it ringing and going to voicemail. I don't remember how, if it went straight to voicemail or, rang for a long time.
But either way,
I know I did not.
I feel like that you would remember. Again, not victim blaming. But that's like, I feel like that's something you remember. Did it go straight to voicemail? Or did it ring? And it's like, if you can't, and again, not victim blaming, but pointing out that now she's sober and she still can't remember.
Not talk to anybody and nobody answered.
No one
She did.
answered.
No.
Now, you mentioned that a Cape Coral detective called you. And what was the purpose of that detective's call to you that you thought at the time?
So
The part that's unclear too is Samantha, who's the cousin. I think in the beginning she said that Christine lived with her cousin. I don't remember. Does somebody remember? Because how did she figure out something was wrong? I think they did live. I think they lived together. But then it's like, well, did she hear something? I don't know. It's like, how did we get here? Why is it that you told her that you went out and then she hung up on you and then the detective calls you right away? So she obviously knew whether it's just like, I want to know that stuff.
that time when they called, they were asking me if
Your Honor,
Sustained.
may I give a
Yes.
object? It's not for the truth of the matter asserted, but for the effect on the listener.
Still here saying still.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send you back to the jury room for a few minutes.
All right.
They go on with that for like a minute. Hold on. Yeah, baby. You okay?
Was the basis, or what was that conversation?
The police were asking me if I knew where Christine was or why her car would have been found in Fort Myers.
So based on these questions, what did it cause you to do?
It caused me to start being concerned about what happened to Christine after I left.
Okay, and then so based on your concern about what happened, what did you do?
Myself, Samantha, our other best friend, and Samantha's husband all went to Christine's apartment.
And when you got to Christine's apartment, what did you see there?
When we got there, the caution tape was already up.
So, Your Honor, the reason for asking the detective is not to prove that her car was stolen, but to prove that at that point, based on our conversation, the action she took and the steps she took, which were to talk to her cousin Samantha, to then actually go over to that home. So based on that, the state would argue that's an exception to the hearsay rule and it should be admissible.
Okay, so if I know I got up for a second, I had to let my dog outside. Okay, so the original Hellcat that he didn't know how to maneuver it when he was intoxicated, if he was, still haven't figured that out, which I feel like is important if we're going to talk about somebody's diminished capacity or not, but whatever. He couldn't switch gears. So now that you find out that somebody's car is missing from Christine's place or whatever, it's like that would immediately set me off. Like, oh, that guy must have stolen the car from last night. You couldn't fucking drive that one either. I'm also highly neurotic. Okay, could just be me. But like at what point do you know?
My objection is it's hearsay, and
Like when you see the caution tape, what's your first thought?
relevance.
Wade?
There's no relevance. And she can just say, based on what the officers told me, I went over to the house without relaying what the officers told
I
me.
hate when they do this shit.
Judge,
They have to anticipate the hearsay. It always fucks me up when lawyers are like good at it. I'm like, how do you anticipate exactly? Crazy. Okay. Come here, baby.
they're trying to find out where her friend Christine was. So what the officer told her, we're not using that for the truth. So therefore it's not hearsay.
Yeah, but we kind of want to know. Yeah, baby. Hold on a second. Yeah, honey buns. You need some help? You need some help? What do you need, huh? Want to go back? You're silly. You're not silly. Do you need some help? No, you're good. Don't sit on my feet. I love you, but not now. Okay, sorry.
But the other objection was to relevance of the effect on her.
Sure. The relevance is that at this point, she realizes that she should be concerned that her friend is missing and that she goes over there. So it's highly relevant as to how this day took place and how she gets over to her missing friend's home and what she does. That's all completely relevant to this case and to the charges that we have before this court.
All right.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry. While it may be interesting, it's not relevant to anything in this case.
Okay. All right. I'm going to sustain the objection. You can ask her about getting a call from the detective. I think you could go as far as having Any objection to her asking, the detective is asking questions about Miss Melton?
Correct.
And then
My guess is she doesn't remember exactly what led her to believe something because the cop gave him I can just see it. The cop said that it could have been this and that, and so they don't want to poison the well, if you will. I think that's what's going on. But it's like I already don't believe your recollection of events, not because I think you're a liar, but you'd be very surprised. Intoxicated people, you think you know, and it's very different. But like we don't know how much liquor was used, right? We knew they were drunk, but they stopped. But we never said if they kept drinking, now they can't drive a stick. You're comfortable to get in the car. It's like the reason that they use this witness is for the emotional factor, and I get it because she was the last one that's with them, and honestly, it doesn't look good. The comments even were kind of like, how are you that? Like, why should we listen to you? If you're going to say, well, I don't remember exactly because of the trauma, it's like, you were also intoxicated. If being intoxicated already makes you unable to consent, why should your testimony be allowed in general? No offense. Like, I'm, again, not trying to victim blame, but it's like, it's the emotion.
And what did you do next?
If it's just based on what the detective said.
He looks like a fish.
What did you do?
All right, so I'll ask her, did the detective call you? And based on what he told you, did you become concerned and then go to Christine's home?
Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. Let's bring the jury back in.
Attention of the judge. He said he didn't write anything in it.
Okay. So I guess can't take it back. You can't take it back to the jury room with him.
Okay.
Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. And I can even just instruct them that I prefer they use the notepads that the court provided. And if they, anything else, leave it out of the courtroom and just use the notepads in the courtroom and leave those in the
For
courtroom.
now, it stays in the courtroom.
Yeah, he said he hasn't written anything in it.
May I hand it to you?
You have it?
Yes, I think.
No, just leave it. There doesn't appear to be anything written in it. It's just got his juror summons. So just ask him to leave this back in the jury room and only use the note and pad that the court has provided.
I'll bring it back with me now.
Yes.
Just so the record's clear, the
Wait.
bailiff gave you the notebook that the juror brought with him to court. The court has
Now I'll instruct all the jurors if they brought their own personal notebooks or anything, just to leave those back in the jury room and only use the ones provided by the court.
I know exactly what your delusions are based on these tattoos. 100%. Well, not 100%. I see a swastika. Something I've noticed. I explained it. I think I explained it in the beginning how the person that I knew who committed something that would put you in jail. Okay, didn't press charges, but something that could put you in jail in distancing language. It was like immediately after that event, this person had the delusion that they were dead. Originally, they thought that mom and I and dad had, it's a very interesting delusion. It's called Capgras. I think C-A-C-R-A-P, Gras, G-R-A-S. And it's essentially when you think the people you know really well are being overtaken by spirits, demons, and that shit. And so what happens is, in order to save your real family members, and their line of thinking is to kill the real ones. So they can't differentiate that, like, no demons here, just a bitch. Okay, just a bitch. But they like see spirits going in, you know, hallucinations. So it's like, then when they think that you're not real and the only way to save the person that they love, siblings, family, whatever, is to kill. Like I said, it might not end up on a Hallmark card, but it's cute to me. It's kind of crazy that you have to get to that line of thinking. But aside from that, after the event, it was so fascinating that they thought they were dead. My situation, this person does not have insight at all, which is a very tricky concept in and of itself. But like in terms of capital punishment, you want them to really reap what they sow. They don't have any idea of what's going on. Like it's pointless, is what I'm trying to say. And so the fact that their brain comes to the conclusion, not that I just tried to kill my family, but that I'm already dead, trying to differentiate. It's like, that was the new thing. I'm dead. I'm a skeleton. And I see this man who has tattoos like that. And I'm not saying that I know 100%. But most people don't get facial tattoos before their court date for double murder. I bet you this is an assumption, but it's like I've seen the brain kind of follow a certain delusional path. It's like, this is my experience, but there's a lot of people that have the same experience. It makes you wonder how your brain breaks down and why it follows this line. But I bet you he was going around saying he's dead. He has no insight. 100% has no idea what the fuck is going on right now. I know it looks like he does, but 100% he doesn't. And it's like, he thinks he's dead. He's probably, you know, people kind of make fun of people with a mental illness. Like, oh, here's Wade, Skeletor. How are you doing, man? I'm good. What's up, man? Like, it's like they can converse. They're not fucking stupid. But it's like, I bet you he kept saying that. And that's why he has this tattoo. And it's funny, but it's not funny. It's actually incredibly sad. And I see the swastika on the other cheek. And another delusion that they run on very alt-right, prejudice, racist, you name it. That's why speech is important. Topic for another day. But it's like they believe that they were a Nazi soldier that was dead. It's like that came out of fucking nowhere. And it's like that swastika. And it makes you wonder if this is how their brain has to cope with the wrong that they did, that they don't know they did, because they know they did something, and so they're punishing themselves by believing they're dead and shit, and that they were a Nazi, whatever the delusion is. Just, I know we're looking at him. I know there's sick fucks out there that thinks he's hot. Like, all I see, and I don't see it often, but when I do, it's like, I know this man has no insight into illness. He is medicated. I can tell by the way he's got more meat on him. And I won't say which meds, but they can slow down your metabolism significantly. I understand why a lot of people don't want to take them for the weight thing. You might see somebody go in a mental institution for 72 hours and they come out fat and they were gaunt that fast. It's crazy. But it looks like he's got, it's like the medication can get rid of voices. Well, technically you have like good and bad voices. They like the good ones, usually. They're like their friends, no matter how long you're in it, whatever. And sometimes the medication can only get rid of the good voices. Isn't that sad? It's like weight gain and this. Fuck that. I understand why they don't want to take the meds. You know? Especially when they don't think that they're sick. This man is definitely still hearing and seeing shit, but he's medicated. I can tell by the tics. Has a certain way to... The illness itself manifests in a very flat affect. The creepiest shit is when they laugh at themselves out of nowhere. Ooh. No offense, love you, not. It freaked me out, okay? That's my experience. Or they can no longer cry, but you know that they're suffering because they're really panicked and manicked. Write that down. But yeah, just an observation, because I know people are going to be really quick to be like, oh, this guy is smiling. And it's like, no, there's probably a tattoo guy that's like, dude, you need to smile, Skeletor, and puts like a grin on him. It's like, it's funny, but it's not funny. And I know so much about this topic because I lived it, literally. I was the first one to notice it. I was the first one to call crisis. I continued to call crisis, was the only one off the order of protection. I used to go in and out of Cook County nonstop. Like, watched it from start to finish. So it's like I have other family members that kind of got the gist of it, but they've never witnessed it. And we already have two completely different ways of looking at the entire thing. Thank God they moved on with their lives and did something good. Glad I took the heat for it, okay? We only risked one other person getting fucked up from it. Watching somebody go mad, it's like watching somebody get hit by a car nonstop every day. So if this is you and you're the person trying to get someone help, don't forget, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you help fucking anybody. And if you start to see weird shit during it and you're not sleeping, go see a doctor. Love you.
Jurors entering.
Yeah, honey, come here. You're okay. Come here, baby. I'm almost done.
All right. Please be seated. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I know some of you may have brought your own notepads or what have you with you. I would just ask you leave any of those personal things in the jury room, and when you're in the courtroom.
I got a dog crying. Yeah, babe. We should take a break and go to the park. Okay, I'm going to end it here. I'll be back. Don't worry, I will come right back. But she needs me. And I seem to be everybody's bitch nowadays. Like the video, comment, subscribe. I'm coming, babe. I'm coming. I'm coming. Don't cry. We're going to go to the park real quick. We're going.